Okay, let's take a trip. We're going way back, thousands of years ago, to a fertile strip of land between two rivers. This is where the whole idea of civilization as we know it was born. We're going to be diving deep into Mesopotamia, the place that didn't just give us cities or writing, but literally created the blueprint for the world we're all living in today.
So, before we jump in our time machine, let's start with a big question. What are the building blocks of civilization? I mean, seriously, think about it. What does it actually take to go from just scattered groups of people to a complex, organized society?
Well, the answer to that question, the very first draft of the Instruction Manual for Society, started to come together in one really remarkable place, Mesopotamia. You know, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. This is ground zero for our story.
Our first stop on this journey is with the people who drew up those first plans, the original architects, if you will, the Sumerians. These guys didn't just build the first cities, they pretty much invented the very concept of living together in a city.
So what the Sumerians did was establish this brand new thing, the independent city-state. You've got places like Uruk, and Lagash popping up, and they were these buzzing hubs of innovation. Each one was run by a leader they called a Lugal, and the whole city was organized around a huge temple, which acted as like the religious and administrative headquarters all in one.
But you know, as these cities got bigger and more complex, they needed a new tool, something revolutionary to keep track of everything. And so they invented it, cuneiform. This was the world's very first system of writing, and believe me, it was the key that unlocked a whole new level of what society could be.
And here's the wild part, how writing actually began. It wasn't with epic poetry or love letters. Nope, it started with accounting. Just simple marks pressed into clay tablets to keep track of grain and sheep. But from that super practical beginning, it evolved into a way to write down laws, and then, eventually, to capture their entire culture in amazing stories like the Epic of Gilgamesh.
So, the Sumerian blueprint, it worked so well that other groups started to build on it. They took the basic idea and decided to scale it way up, from these separate cities into huge, unified empires. And with that came the need for new rules to manage it all.
You can really see the evolution here on this timeline. First, you've got the pioneering city-states of Sumer. Then, about 1,000 years later, bam, the Akkadians show up and completely change the game. And they're followed by the Babylonians, who bring a whole new kind of order to the table.
The Akkadians' big contribution was this idea of connection. Under their leader, a guy named Sargon of Akkad, they did something nobody had ever done before. They united all of those fiercely independent Sumerian cities under a single ruler. This created one of history's first true empires. I mean, that's a massive leap in how you organize people. Suddenly you have one political power stretching across the entire region. It's a concept that would shape history for thousands of years to come.
Okay, so after the Akkadians, you get the Babylonians, and they looked at this big, sprawling empire and realized that a powerful army just wasn't enough to hold it all together. You needed rules. You needed a system. So they got to work creating the legal framework for this brand new, supersized world. And this is where their most famous king, Hammurabi, enters the picture. He created one of the earliest and most complete legal codes we've ever found. And its purpose was crystal clear: bring order to everything, from business deals to marriage contracts to property disputes. This wasn't just a list of harsh punishments, it was a real attempt to create a just society where everybody from the richest noble to a regular person knew the rules. What a revolutionary idea.
Next up, we meet the Assyrians. Now, this is a civilization that not only expanded the Mesopotamian world to its absolute biggest, but they also took on the super important job of preserving all the knowledge that had been gathered for centuries before them. The Assyrians are fascinating because they're a total paradox. On the one hand, they were absolute masters of war. We're talking powerful armies, really sophisticated siege weapons. They were feared all across the ancient world. But on the other hand, they were these incredible patrons of knowledge, totally dedicated to collecting and protecting information. And that brings us to their greatest legacy that isn't about war. In their capital, Nineveh, a king named Ashurbanipal created this incredible library. He gathered thousands and thousands of cuneiform tablets from all over his empire. I mean, just stop and think about that. Without this single act of preservation, huge parts of Mesopotamian history, science, and their greatest stories would have just vanished, lost to time forever. So as we pull back and look at the big picture, you can really see the finished foundation. The Sumerians laid that first cornerstone, the Akkadians and Babylonians built the structure up, and then the Assyrians basically put a protective roof on it.
And it's a foundation that, believe it or not, we are still living on today.
When you really break it down, so much of our modern world has its roots right here. The very idea of living in a city, having written laws that apply to everyone, complex government, literature, even the beginnings of science like mathematics and astronomy. These are all building blocks that were forged in Mesopotamia.
And these ideas didn't just fade away. They were passed on like a torch, influencing the next great civilizations down the line, like the ancient Greeks and, of course, the Romans. The work done between those two rivers literally echoed through the centuries, shaping the entire path of human history. Which brings us to one last thought. The people of Mesopotamia left behind a blueprint for civilization that has lasted for thousands of years. And that really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What's the blueprint that our civilization is creating right now? What will our enduring foundation look like for the world of tomorrow?